Shakti Pods here, too.
You guys might have noticed recently that I've been uploading a lot of material to do with the Mahayana Buddhist tradition. Mantras, seed mantras, special mantras that represent a certain Buddha, such as the Om Mani Padme Hum, which is the Avalokiteshvara mantra. And this is because recently I have been deriving a tremendous amount of compassion and love and freedom from Anartha's false values, freedom from some of the dogmas that were kind of implanted into my head when I went into studying Vaishnavism, which kind of is told from a heavily skewed and material and dualistic perspective. I've been studying scriptures like the Lotus Sutra a little bit, just a little bit, here and there, even before recently. It's been up on the Uttama Shakti website, for instance. But just in the last couple days, I've realized the potency of it, and also at the same time I've been talking a lot to Bhakti Ananda Goswami about it, and seeing some of the connections and how this tradition is so amazingly, it's the exact same thing as Vaishnavism, or what it's meant to be, truly. Bhakti Ananda Goswami has shown me how there's just one religion in the whole world, and that Bhagavan is showing himself through this one religion in different places, but it's the same Bhagavan. If I could read from the same Lotus Sutra that I just mentioned, a quote that Bhakti Ananda Goswami sent or posted on our Facebook group that we've got going. By the way, if anybody wants to join the Facebook group, let me know, and I can add you on Facebook and you can join the group. It's really cool. We got 100 people there, post a lot of stuff. Anyway, the quote goes, "Again the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Akshamati said to the Lord, 'How, O Lord, is it that the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara frequents this Saha world?'" The Saha world is the material world of reincarnation and etc., the worlds of the 6 desire worlds that we currently occupy, one of those, the human worlds. "How is it that the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara," Avalokiteshvara means the Lord who looks down. Avalokiteshvara is the same as Ishvar. Another name for him is Lokeshvara, which is, there's no difference. And I'm going to show in this video and in videos in the future how that there's absolutely no difference. And that the Mahayana and the later Pure Land Buddhists knew that there was no difference between what they were doing and that same essential Vedic religion. They saw the Buddha as a new avatar of Bhagavan, giving the same dharma, giving them dharma and protecting dharma and upholding dharma. And it wasn't just this materialistic type of Buddhism that most people talk about and most people are aware of. Those type of people that talk about the materialistic side of Buddhism, they don't understand the purport, they don't understand what a Buddha is, who the Buddha was, the Shakyamuni Buddha. Continuing, "So the Lord replied to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Akshamati, in some words, young men of good family, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara preaches the law to creatures in the shape of a Buddha. In others he does so in the shape of a Bodhisattva. To some beings he shows the law in the shape of a Pratyeka Buddha. To others he does so in the shape of a disciple. To others under that of Brahma, Indra, or a Gandharva. To those who are to be converted by a goblin, he preaches the law assuming the shape of a goblin. To those who are to be converted by Ishvar, he preaches the law in the shape of Ishvar. To those who are to be converted by Maheshvar, he preaches assuming the shape of Maheshvar. Maheshvar is Lord Shiva. To those who are to be converted by a Cakravartin, Bhakti Ananda Goswami says the term is ambiguous. It means that the mover of the wheel, i.e. Lord Vishnu and an emperor, he shows the law after assuming the shape of a Cakravartin. To those who are to be converted by an imp, he shows the law under the shape of an imp. To those who are to be converted by Kubera, he shows the law under appearing the shape of Kubera. And to those who are to be converted by Senapati, or denoting the commander-in-chief of the army of God, Skanda, and a commander-in-chief in general, he preaches in the shape of Senapati. To those who are to be converted by assuming a Brahman, he preaches in the shape of a Brahmana. To those who are being converted by Vajrapani, one of the Dhyani Buddhas, Vajrapani, holder of the Vajra, he preaches in the shape of Vajrapani. With inconceivable qualities, young man of good family is the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara endowed with inconceivable qualities. So that's the same as the definition of Krishna. Inconceivable qualities. That's the same as Bhagwan, because this is talking about Bhagwan. Therefore, young man of good family, honor Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara. The Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, young men of good family, affords safety to those who are in anxiety. On account of that, one calls him in this Saha world Abhayananda, i.e. the giver of safety. It says in the Bhagavata Purana, that is the Srimad Bhagavatam 1-3-26, O Brahmanas, the incarnations of the Lord are innumerable, like rivulets flowing from inexhaustible sources of water. So, the incarnation of Shakyamuni Buddha was a very powerful avatar, and originally Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, not the warped Theravada Buddhism, but Mahayana Buddhism, and I mean Theravada Buddhism provides a certain platform for ideas. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look up the difference between Theravada and Mahayana. Theravada Buddhism is where we get this like Buddhist atheism that most people associate with Buddhism, and a lot of the philosophy, you know, can be generated when you, like I said, when you look at things in that particular way of looking at them. But ultimately, liberation is not afforded by that. And that's another thing which I want to get into, showing the relationship between specifically Vaishnava principles, Gaudiya Vaishnava principles, and the principles of Jodo Shinshu, which is the true Pure Land Buddhism school, as it's called, true Pure Land Buddhism in Japan. We're going to show how this true Pure Land Buddhism school came from the same area as Mathura, came from the same area as Krishna in Gandhara and Mathura, which is right there in northern India. And that it was seen not as some new religion, some kind of, you know, new thing which was separate from Hinduism, but it was seen as the same thing, just one. Because that's what God is. God is one. And I think if you can see this and learn and experience what I'm saying and go through this with us, then you can have that experience, and it's very liberating to not be afraid, not be confused, and to see the Absolute as it really is. At the beginning of civilization, at the middle, and at the end, and at the core, always. The fundamental core of Pure Land Buddhism, especially the true Pure Land Buddhism, Jodo Shinshu, is the story of Amitabha Buddha. Amitabha Buddha is the embodiment of all of the compassion of all of the bodhisattvas. So in other words, the full fountainhead of all mercy. And according to the larger sutra of immeasurable life, Amitabha was, in very ancient times, quote-unquote, in possibly another realm, a monk named Dharmakara. And in other words, this is a story about the Leela of Bhagavan. We always hear about Bhagavan through about a story of his Leela. Krishna was a king in, for example, Dwarka. And he was, a peasant boy in Vrindavan. Likewise, the Amitabha Buddha is shown in this story of being a monk named Dharmakara. And this is a symbolic Leela, and also one that he performs. And Dharmakara is described as being a former king who comes into contact with the Buddha's teaching through the Buddha Lokeshwara Raj, renounces his throne. He then resolved to become a Buddha, and so to become in possession of a Buddha Kshetra, a Buddha field, a world produced by a Buddha's merit, possessed of many perfections. These resolutions were expressed in his 48 vows, which set out the type of Buddha field Dharmakara aspired to create, the conditions under which the beings might be born into that world, and what beings they would be when reborn there. After I read the vows, we're going to see how that the principal teachings of Jodo Shinshu is the reliance upon the quote-unquote other power, reliance on the power of the Amitabha Buddha, because it's seen what they call the Dharma ending age that we live in is an age in which nobody can attain the proper, most people anyway, they say that most people don't have the strength to attain the right level of enlightenment by their own self-power alone. So vow number 8 is the vow that we're concerned with of the 48 vows of Amitabha Buddha. O Bhagavat, if, when I attain Buddhahood, sentient beings in the lands of the 10 quarters who sincerely and joyfully entrust themselves to me, desire to be born in my land, and call my name even 10 times, should not be born there, may I not attain perfect enlightenment. O Bhagavat, if, when I attain Buddhahood, sentient beings in the lands of the 10 quarters who awaken aspiration for enlightenment, do meritorious deeds, and sincerely desire to be born in my land, should not, at their death, see me appear before them, surrounded by a multitude of sages, may I not attain perfect enlightenment. This is called Amitabha Buddha's primal vow, and this is his promise that he will save anyone who takes shelter in his holy name. Now, this is also a theme which you find in the core of Christianity, as well as Sufism, as well as, of course, Gaudiya Vaishnavism. We're told that in this Dharma ending age that we live in, the one recourse that we have left is to chant the holy name. And through doing this, we hope to be born in the Pure Land, that is Vaikuntha. Shukavati actually means the happy place, and Vaikuntha means no anxiety. So happiness and no anxiety is the same. When we're talking about being born in the Pure Land of Amitabha Buddha, it makes no difference between saying that or being born in the Vaikuntha of Narayana. In fact, I'm going to show here, there's an inscription on a stele at the Shaolin Monastery in China of all places, which reads, this is from the Wikipedia page of the Buddhist deity Vajrapani Bodhisattva. In his book, The Shaolin Monastery, Professor Meyer Shahar notes Vajrapani is the patron saint of the Shaolin Monastery. A short story appearing in Zhen Zhao's Tang Anthology shows how the deity has been venerated in the monastery from at least the 8th century. An anecdotal story about how the Shaolin monk gained supernatural strength by fighting and praying to Vajrapani and being forced to erected a stele in his honor. It reads, according to the scripture, the Lotus Sutra, this deity, and it says Narayana, this Narayana, this Narayan, it calls it a Narayan. So that's directly a Vaishnav term. Narayan is a manifestation of Avalokiteshvar Guanyin. Avalokiteshvar is the same as the Lord who looks down, the same as Ishvara, the controller, Narayan, is a manifestation of Avalokiteshvara. So we're talking about like Mahashankarshana. If you look at the picture of Avalokiteshvara, what it looks like, you'll see, I'm sure you've seen it before, the thousand-armed Kuan Yin. This is the same kind of imagery as you see in Egypt, with the sun, with it's got all these arms going out in different rays. The arm is symbolic of all these rays extending out from the deity, holding mudras, etc. Let me continue this. This is the stele, what it says, on a Shaolin stele. A stele in a Shaolin temple, rather. According to the Lotus Sutra, this Narayan is a manifestation of Avalokiteshvara Guanyin. If a person who's compassionately nourishes all living beings employs this deity's charm, it will increase his body's strength, Zheng Zheng Shenli. It fulfills all vows, being most efficacious. Therefore, those who study Narayan's hand symbols, mudra, those who seek his spell, mantra, and those who search for his image are numerous. Thus we have erected this stele to spread this transmission. Amazing! This is the true gnosis. This is the true understanding. This is the true dharma. It's the essence of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, of any other religion. Because this is dharma, period. You know, it's so amazing to see the connections. It's so amazing to see how it's the exact same thing, and to understand it, almost. I mean, understand as much as you can, but not to be baffled by something like Tibetan Buddhism and the inherent contradictions that you see in it. And as if that wasn't enough, remember how I told you that Pure Land Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, came out of a place called Gandhara in India. This region we're familiar with from a previous video that I made called The Epic Story of Bhakti Heliodorus. This is the region where the Greeks set up their Indo-Greek kingdoms in Bactria, Taxila, etc. in that same region by Pakistan, northern India. So we actually have pictures of the Greek god Hercules being used to represent Vajrapani. As it says on the Wikipedia page, just as Buddha Ghosh associated Vajrapani with the Hindu god Indra, his first representations in India were identified with the thunder deity. As Buddhism expanded in Central Asia and fused with Hellenistic influences into Greco-Buddhism, the Greek hero Hercules was adopted to represent Vajrapani. He is then typically depicted as hairy, muscular athlete wielding a short diamond club. So we actually have Heracles. And remember that Hera is very close to the name Hari, and Bhakti Ananda Goswami relates the name Hari to Hera, back to Vajrapani, back to Avalokiteshvara, and back to Amitabha Buddha. They're often shown in a trinity, just as deity is depicted in Egypt, Greece, Judaism, Christianity, and of course India in Hinduism, Vaishnavism. So it doesn't matter what kind of trinity. If you look at the deity, it will always be relatively the same, with very few major differences. Because it doesn't matter where or when, deity is still deity. It might manifest slightly different in cultures and time, but ultimately the core essence does not change from any true wisdom tradition. And so back to this wisdom tradition, which is one of the most recent expressions of the Avatar's Dharma. Here is a verse about the Buddha Amitabha. Bodhisattvas hear about the Buddha Amitabha and call him to mind again and again in this land, the Pure Land Shukavati. Because of this calling to mind, they see the Buddha Amitabha. Having seen him, they ask him what dharmas it takes to be born in the realm of Buddha Amitabha. Then the Buddha Amitabha says to these bodhisattvas, "If you wish to come and be born in my realm, You must always call me to mind again and again. You must always keep this thought in your mind. Keep this thought in mind without let up, and thus you will succeed to be born in my realm. This is almost the same word for word as Bhagavad Gita 18-65, which says, the famous Man Mano Bhavo Mad Bhakto verse, which is the basis of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Likewise, the basis of Pure Land Buddhism, which is the highest expression of the most recent Dharma tradition to descend from an avatar of God. This verse, Bhagavad Gita 18-65, says, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me and offer your homage to me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my dear friend. Likewise, the Buddha Amitabha says, if you wish to come to be born in my realm, you must always call me to mind again and again. You must always keep this thought in your mind without letting up, and thus you will succeed to be born in my realm. And so, just like in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and in many core spiritual traditions, religious practices, Pure Land Buddhists especially focus on this special vow of Amitabha Buddha by chanting his name in a process called Nyanpo, which derives from the Sanskrit term Buddhashanamriti, which means mindfulness of the Buddha. In the context of Pure Land practice, this means the repetition of the name of Amitabha Buddha. I'm going to continue reading the Wikipedia page. In most Pure Land traditions, mindfully chanting the name of Amitabha Buddha is viewed as allowing one to attain birth in Amitabha's western Pure Land called Shukavati. It is felt that this act will help to negate vast stores of negative karma that might hinder one's pursuit of Buddhahood. Shukavati is a place of refuge where one can become enlightened without being distracted by the sufferings of our existence. And also, after you attain Buddhahood and Shukavati, attaining birth in Pure Land is seen as being the same as attaining enlightenment. So when you attain the Pure Land, and which may be while you're still alive, you might enter the Pure Land while you're still alive, or after birth, it depends on, the capacity of the person. Or maybe everybody enters Pure Land as soon as you have faith and start chanting. That's possible too. There's debate over that specific issue. But either way, and then after that, you become a bodhisattva, and you can come back to the earth and bring more people to the Pure Land. Continuing, it says, the Nyanpo is taken to be a type of mantra and used in meditation in Chinese Buddhism. It is often used in tandem with Buddhist prayer beads. In China, there's a combined practice of Pure Land and Zen, which is very interesting. As taught by the Venerable Nanhua Jin, the Nyanpo, Namu Amitabha, or the Chinese version, is chanted slowly and the mind is emptied after each repetition. When idle thoughts arise, the Nyanpo is repeated again to clear them. With constant practice, the mind progressively empties and the meditator attains samadhi. So it reminds me of that documentary that I made, Shabda Brahman. When the seed mantras are repeated and afterwards the mind is empty, the consciousness explodes from the power of the seed mantra. Which is interesting, and another interesting thing rather is that the Amitabha Buddha's seed mantra is Hri, like Hari, it's Hri, which is freaking amazing. And if you look at the Judaic God, his name is Eli. Like when Jesus cried out on the cross, Eli, Eli, sabachthani, my God, you have forsaken me. Then the Greeks have Helios, Arabics have Allah, El, Eli, Hari, Free. So Amitabha Buddha's seed is free. And the seed mantra, of course, as we learned from the Shabda Brahman documentary, contains the consciousness of Amitabha Buddha in it. So by chanting this, you attain the Pure Land, you attain Amitabha Buddha consciousness. Various Pure Land schools in Japan have different interpretations of the Nyanpo, based on faith in Amitabha Buddha, rather than on meditation only. In the Jodo Shinsho Buddhist tradition, The Nyanpho is reinterpreted as an expression of gratitude to Amitabha Buddha. The idea being that birth in Shukavati is assured the moment one has faith in Amitabha Buddha. And this is really interesting. This is where Jodo Shinshu, which is called the true Pure Land Buddhism, really shines above all the other forms of Mahayana Buddhism. Because even beyond just saying, okay, attaining the Pure Land, it says, okay, after the Pure Land, then there's Bhakti, what it calls Shinjin, which is literally means heart-mind, or purified heart-mind, consciousness of heart-mind. But it equates to Bhakti. It means the same as Bhakti, devotion and faith, and trusting. It literally means entrusting. So when you have that trust, which is expressed in gratitude, then the chanting of the Nyanpho becomes Bhakti. It becomes a form of Bhakti Yoga, an expression of devotion. And it brings one that faith in the other power. And when one has that entrusting, that true faith in the other power, that true Bhakti, then you have the goal of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the goal of Christianity, the goal of Islam, the goal of every true religion, which is to love God, to know and love God truly and experience it in your consciousness. So to that effect, I would like to read what's called the Tanisho. The Tanisho was a writing by the Japanese monk Shinran, who founded the quote-unquote true Pure Land school known as Shin Buddhism, the Jodo Shinshu. He was a Tendai Japanese Buddhist monk, and his biography, his story is just amazing. You can read it on the internet. Just as amazing as anything that you find in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And he penned a text detailing the essence of his philosophy and his practice called the Tanisho, and I'd like to read that for you here now so we can get an idea of how this is so beautiful and relates exactly to Gaudiya Vaishnavism and to what we know is truth based on what God has revealed directly to us. And I would even go so far as to say that this is an extension of that same revelation. Because another thing I wanted to add is that there's a very beautiful philosophy that goes along with Jodo Shinshu, which it embellishes and it complements Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy so much. Listen to this phrase that they use. Given that the Nembetsu, that is the Nyanpho, is the name uppercase, when one utters the name uppercase, that is Amida, calling to the devotee. That is the essence of the quote-unquote name that calls. Beautiful understanding of bhakti and of the simultaneous oneness and difference at the same time. So anyway, here's the Tanisho. 1. When the thought of saying the Nembetsu, like the Harinam, the Nembetsu, erupts from deep within, having entrusted ourselves to the inconceivable power of Amida's vow which saves us, enabling us to be born in the Pure Land, we receive at that very moment the ultimate benefit of being grasped, never to be abandoned. Amida's primal vow does not discriminate between the young and the old, good and evil, true and trusting alone is essential. The reason is that the vow is directed to the person burdened with the weight of karmic evil and burning with the flames of blind passion. Thus, in entrusting ourselves to the primal vow, no other form of good is necessary, for there is no good that surpasses the Nembetsu. And evil need not be feared, for there is no evil which can obstruct the working of Amida's primal vow. I believe that the reason you have come here, crossing over more than 10 provinces at the risk of your lives, is solely to ascertain the path that leads to birth in the Pure Land. But if you suspect that I know ways other than the Nembetsu to attain birth, or that I am versed in the scriptures connected with them, you are greatly mistaken. If that be the case, there are many eminent scholars in the monasteries of Nara and Mount Ye. You should go see them and ask them in detail about the way to attain birth in the Pure Land. As for myself, Shinran, I simply take to heart the words of my dear teacher Honen. Just say the Nembetsu and be saved by Amida, and entrust myself to the primal vow. Besides this, there is nothing else. I really do not know whether the Nembetsu may be the cause for my birth in the Pure Land or the act shall condemn me to hell, but I have nothing to regret, even if I should so be deceived by my teacher and, saying the Nembetsu, fall into hell. The reason is that if I were capable of realizing Buddhahood by other religious practices and yet fall into hell for saying the Nembetsu, I might have dire regrets for having been deceived. But since I am absolutely incapable of any religious practice, hell is my only home. So at this, I would like to comment, this is exactly what Lord Chaitanya said. He said in this Dharma-ending age of Kali Yuga, and this is the point of the author. The point of the author is that we live in this age where enlightenment in the traditional way is not possible for the majority of people. Some people have the capacity for meditative, tantrika, sadhana, yoga, etc., and they can do it that way. But the majority of people, their greatest thing that they have available to us is grace, mercy. That is the one thing that is 100% available to us, and we can get the results of all of the yogas by doing this Nembetsu, by doing this Sankirtan. Nembetsu is the same as Sankirtan. If Amida's primal vow is true, Shakyamuni's teaching cannot be false. If the Buddha's teaching is true, Shantao's commentaries cannot be false. If Shantao's commentaries are true, how can Honen's words be empty of meaning? If Honen's words are true, what I, Shinran, say cannot be meaningless. In brief, such is the true entrusting of this foolish one. Now whether you accept the Nembetsu, entrusting yourself to it or rejecting it, that is your own decision. Even the good person attains birth in the Pure Land, how much more so the evil person? But the people of the world constantly say even the evil person attains birth, how much more so the good person? Although this appears to be sound at first glance, it goes against the intention of the primal vow of the other power, uppercase other power. The reason is that since the person of self-power, being conscious of doing good, lacks the thought of entrusting the self completely to uppercase other power, he or she is not the focus of the primal vow of Amida. But when self-power is turned over, and entrusting to other power occurs, the person attains birth in the land of true fulfillment. This is pure Vaishnavism. But when self-power is turned over, and entrusting to uppercase other power occurs, the person attains birth in the land of true fulfillment. The primal vow was established out of deep compassion for us, who cannot become freed by the bondage of birth and death through any religious practice due to the abundance of blind passion, since its basic intention is to effect the enlightenment of such an evil one. The evil person who is led to entrusting by other power is the person who attains birth in the Pure Land. Thus even the good person attains birth, how much more so the evil person? There is a difference in compassion between the path of the sages and the path of the Pure Land. The compassion in the path of the sages is expressed through pity, sympathy, and care for all beings. But rare is it that one can help another as completely as one desires. The compassion in the path of the Pure Land is to quickly attain Buddhahood, saying the Nembetsu, and with the true heart of compassion and love save all beings completely as we desire. Beautiful. This could have come from Chaitanya's mouth himself. The compassion in the pure path of the Pure Land is to quickly attain Buddhahood, saying the Nembetsu, and with the true heart of compassion and love save all beings completely as we desire. In this life, no matter how much pity and sympathy we may feel for others, it is impossible to help another as we truly wish. Thus our compassion is inconsistent and limited. Only the saying of Nembetsu manifests the complete and never-ending compassion which is true, real, and sincere. I, Shinran, have never even once uttered the Nembetsu for the sake of my mother and father. The reason is that all beings have been fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters, in the timeless process of birth and death. When I attain Buddhahood in the next birth, each and every one will be saved. If it were a good accomplished by my own powers, then I could transfer the accumulated merits of Nembetsu to save my father and mother. But since such is not the case, when we become free from self-power and quickly attain the enlightenment of the Pure Land, we will save those bound closest to us through transcendental powers, no matter how deeply they are immersed in the karmic sufferings of the 6 realms and 4 modes of birth. It is utterly unthinkable that among the followers of single-hearted Nembetsu practice, there are arguments about quote-unquote my disciples and quote-unquote others' disciples. As for myself, Shinran, I do not have a single disciple. If I could make others say the Nembetsu through my own devices, that would be my disciples. But how arrogant it is to claim as my disciples those who lived the Nembetsu through the sole working of Amida's compassion. If the karmic condition for us is to come together, we shall be together. But if the karmic condition is for us to be separated, we shall be separated. How absurd it is that some people assert that if one goes against a teacher and says the Nembetsu under another, that person cannot attain birth in the Pure Land. Are they saying that they will take back the entrusting which is a gift from Amida as if it belonged to them? Impossible is it that such a thing should happen. When we have lived according to the truth of, quote-unquote, made to become so by itself, we shall know the gratitude to the Buddha and our teachers. In the person of Nembetsu opens up the great path of unobstructed freedom. The reason is that the gods of heaven and earth bow before the practicer of true and trusting bhakti, and those of the world of demons and rival ways cannot obstruct such a person. The consequences of karmic evil cannot bear fruit, nor does any form of good equal the Nembetsu. Thus it is called the great path of unobstructed freedom. The saying of Nembetsu is neither a religious practice nor a good act. Since it is practice without any calculation, it is non-practice. Since it is not a good created by my calculation, it is non-good, quote-unquote. Since it is nothing but the other power, completely free from self-power, it is neither religious practice nor a good act on the part of the practitioner. Although I am saying the Nembetsu, I rarely experience joyful happiness, nor do I have the desire to immediately go to the Pure Land. What should be done about this? I asked. Then he responded, I, Shinran, have been saying the same question, and now you, Yueyen, have the same thought. When I carefully consider the matter, my birth in the Pure Land is settled without a doubt for the very reason that I do not rejoice about that which I should be bursting with joy. It is the work of blind passion which suppresses the heart that would rejoice and prevents its foolish expression. All this the Buddha already knew and called us foolish beings filled with blind passion. Thus, when we realize that the compassionate vow of other power is for beings like ourselves, the vow becomes even more reliable and dependable. The working of blind passion also causes us not to want to go to the Pure Land, and makes us feel uneasy, worrying about death when we become even slightly ill. Impossible it seems to leave this old house of agitation, where we have wandered aimlessly since the beginning of time, nor can we long for the Pure Land of peace, which we have yet to know. This is due to the blind passion, so truly powerful and overwhelming. No matter how reluctant we may be, when our life in this world has come to an end beyond our control, for the first time, we go to the land of fulfillment. Those who do not want to go immediately are the special concern of true compassion. For this reason, the vow of true compassion is completely dependable. and our birth in the Pure Land is absolutely certain. If our hearts were filled with joyful happiness and we desired to go swiftly to the Pure Land, we might be misled to think that perhaps we are free of blind passion. The Master Shinran said, "In the Nembetsu, no self-working is true working. It is beyond description, explanation, and conception." The Master constantly said, "When I ponder on the compassionate vow of Amida, established through 5 kalpas of profound thought, it was for myself, Shinran, alone. Because I am being burdened so much heavily with karma, I feel even more deeply grateful to the primal vow which is made decisively save me. As I now reflect upon these words, they are no different from the sayings of Shan Tao. Truly, know that this self is a foolish being of karmic evil, repeating birth and death since beginningless aeons ago, forever drowning and wandering without ever knowing the path of liberation. How grateful I am that Shinran expressed this in his own person to make us deeply realize that we do not know the depth of karmic evil, and that we do not know the height of Tathagata's benevolence. Tathagata means thus come one, far gone one, the one from the far, far, both of which cause us to live in utter confusion. It's the name of the Buddha, that he called himself Tathagata. In reality, all of us, including myself, talk only about what is good and evil without thinking of Tathagata's compassion. Our master once said, "I do not know what the two good and evil really mean. I could say that if I knew what good is, if I knew good as thoroughly and completely as the Tathagata, as God, and I could say I knew what evil is if I knew evil as thoroughly and completely as the Tathagata. But in this impermanent world, like a burning house, all things are empty and vain, therefore untrue. Only the Nembetsu is true, real, and sincere." The Lord who looks down. Avalokiteshvara is the same as Ishvara. Another name for him is Lokeshvara, which is, there's no difference. And I'm going to show in this video and in videos in the future how that there's absolutely no difference. And that the Mahayana and the later Pure Land Buddhists knew that there was no difference between what they were doing and that same essential Vedic religion. They saw the Buddha as a new avatar of Bhagavan, giving the same dharma, giving them dharma and protecting dharma and upholding dharma. And it wasn't just this materialistic type of Buddhism that most people talk about and most people are aware of. Those type of people that talk about the materialistic side of Buddhism, they don't understand the purport, and they don't understand what through this one religion in different places, but it's the same Bhagavan. If I could read from the same Lotus Sutra that I just mentioned, a quote that Bhakti Ananda Goswami posted on our Facebook group that we've got going. By the way, if anybody wants to join the Facebook group, let me know, and I can add you on Facebook, and you can join the group. It's really cool. We got 100 people there. Post a lot of stuff. Anyway, the quote goes, "Again the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Akshamati said to the Lord, 'How, O Lord, is it that the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara frequents this Saha world?' The Saha world is the material world of reincarnation and etc. The worlds of the 6 desire worlds that we currently occupy one of those, the human worlds. How is it that the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara? Avalokiteshvara means the Lord of Buddha is, who the Buddha was, the Shakyamuni Buddha. Continuing, so the Lord replied to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Akshamati, in some words, young men of good family, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara preaches the law to creatures in the shape of a Buddha. In others he does so in the shape of a Bodhisattva. To some beings he shows the law in the shape of a Pratyeka Buddha. To others he does so in the shape of a disciple. To others under that of Brahma, Indra, or a Gandharva. To those who are to be converted by a goblin, he preaches the law assuming the shape of a goblin. To those who are to be converted by Ishvar, he preaches the law in the shape of Ishvar. To those who are to be converted by Maheshvar, he preaches assuming the shape of Maheshvar. Maheshvar is Lord Shiva. To those who are to be converted by a Chakravartin, is told from a heavily skewed and material and dualistic perspective. I've been studying scriptures like the Lotus Sutra a little bit, just a little bit, here and there, even before recently. It's been up on the Uttama Shakti website, for instance. But just in the last couple days, I've realized the potency of it, and also at the same time I've been talking a lot to Bhakti Ananda Goswami about it, and seeing some of the connections and how this tradition is so amazingly, it's the exact same thing as Vaishnavism, or what it's meant to be, truly. Bhakti Ananda Goswami has shown me how there's just one religion in the whole world, and that Bhagavan is showing himself.
Shakti Pod Seer 2.
You guys might have noticed recently that I've been uploading a lot of material to do with the Mahayana Buddhist tradition. Mantras, seed mantras, special mantras that represent a certain Buddha, such as the Om Mani Padme Hum, which is the Avalokiteshvara mantra. And this is because recently I have been deriving a tremendous amount of compassion and love and freedom from Anartha's false values, freedom from some of the dogmas that were kind of implanted into my head when I went into studying Vaishnavism, which kind of